far too little work has been done on cohesion. I think that perhaps we could teach the whole course on proposal writing, with the exception of audience analysis, on how to make documents hang and how to make documents more complete, concise, how to make them more unified. These remarks are about cohesion, a way of achieving document unity through certain kinds of technical ends. Think about glue. It could be simply stated that cohesion is a relationship between one part of a document to another. There are two classic works. The one that's most relevant to students in this course is the one by Broadhead and Freed, Variables of Composition, Process, and Product in a Business Setting. In this work, the authors study in great detail for 2 years the kinds of changes, drafts, revisions, goals that two proposal writers make. They identify certain goals of composition. They talk about an idea of goal to be accurate, for example. The writers wish to be safe, to be thorough, to be relevant, to be coherent. There are certain goals that the researchers identify as style, to be readable, to condense, to avoid weak repetition, to sound good. There are certain goals of usage, to spell correctly, to use conventional phrasing, capitalizations, usage, punctuate, achieve grammatical agreement, of course, all the proofreaders' things we think about. And there are also some goals of proposal writers for affect. For example, to avoid a threat or to avoid an insult. On the other hand, to bond with the reader, to build credit, to feed a wish, to flatter the reader in some way. These are all goals that the researchers identified. But the most single important part of this work for us is the idea of cohesion. These are some goals of cohesion identified by Broadhead and Freed. To signal relationships with a cohesive tie. That is, to tie sentences together in the document through the use of prepositional phrases or through use of infinitive phrases. That is, even using sentence construction itself to tie particular parts of the document together, the rhythm of the document. To signal relationships with punctuation, not just, of course, the use of periods, but the use of commas. Very precisely in this idea, the idea of the use of bulleted out lists through the combination of bullets and the idea of semicolons or commas among the bullets themselves. The use of graphic means, heading, white space, paragraph indentation, highlighting. Again, you get the idea that if these are goals of professional proposal writers, that you want to achieve great parallelism and great cohesiveness in these different parts of the proposal itself. And again, that important idea of signaling relationships through syntax, the idea of parallelism. Repetition of a key word or term. You remember in the drafting process, the process of proposal drafting that I suggested in an earlier lecture, I said select the key terms and actually try to draw them out. The repetition of words, of key terms lexically, comes back time and time again as an important cohesive device. What are some strategies that we might follow in looking in our proposals for cohesion? Certainly the idea of parallelism, specifically parallelism in the idea of verbs. The generative directional sentence, again, something that's put forward in the executive summary and that perhaps is reiterated again in terms of the objectives. The consistent use of headings, graphic, the selection of font, the selection of underlining, bold, flush left, centered to bring a reader effectively through it, the consistent use of white space among paragraphs, the consistent use of paragraph indentation as well, of fonts and of images consistently used throughout, especially the idea of images to help explain very complex concepts. We'll talk more about that in a later lecture on the visual display of information. Goals of cohesion? Well, of course, the reader's need for unity. Readers who read proposals very often read an enormous amount of documents. Their past experiences will tell them that perhaps the more unified a document is, the more unified the thought of the people who created the document. Therefore, the document becomes a manifestation of the individual. As a function of the complexity of the material, certainly the read for unity is there as well. The more complex and dense the material becomes, the more easily Readers need to get through part to part of the document. Essential perhaps is the single most important element to the success of the proposal. Cohesion is an indication of the writer's mastery of the concept, an indication that the writer truly understands and is able to translate, to convey to someone else the essential part of the message. The achievement of cohesion in documents, therefore, is perhaps the single most element of a document's unity and what will be a document's success.